Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story, where each weekday we offer a brief lesson from a section of today's reading from the One-Year Bible. My name's Stephen Mizell, and Jay Rivenbark and I are joined today by Sheryl Daughety. And we're in Proverbs chapter 7, verses 6 through 23, and we're talking about the path to temptation, how temptation disguises danger, and why discernment is essential in knowing wisdom and helping us avoid some of those destructive paths. And if you'll stay with us to the end, you'll even hear a funny story from my childhood. So I hope you'll grab a Bible and a pen and paper. Let's have a conversation around the Word of God. Hey everyone, welcome to One Single Story today. It's February 5th, and we are looking at Proverbs chapter 7, verses 6 through 23. And we're examining the path to temptation. So how temptation rarely arrives suddenly, that it unfolds gradually. It shows up over time. And as a part of this, was there anything that you guys saw that you said, I want to make sure we talk about?
Well, I would say that even though in my Bible, the heading for this is warning about immoral women, when I read the description of how this whole situation played out, you could put anything in there. You could easily substitute she and her with whatever that
Money,
thing is.
yeah.
That you're tempted and seduced by, basically.
Yeah, and the fact that even though your struggle or temptation may be different, have a different title than what this text is, that there are always people who can see your situation perhaps more quickly and readily than you when you are caught up in it, when you're the one being enticed, pulled in, trapped, etc. And that it's important that we help others see where they're struggling and their danger points are, as well as being open to allow people to speak to us about areas where we may be struggling. And we may not even be aware of it initially, but to some people, it is obvious. You know, you're like, what in the world are they thinking or doing?
When you're removed from a situation, it's easier to see, you know.
Yeah.
You can stand farther back from it.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's easier to see. But it wasn't the way I read it. He didn't set out.
He was naive.
That's right. He was naive. He was just wandering around. He's walking down the street. He didn't know what he's getting ready to happen upon. You know, he doesn't, in this case, it's talking about the immoral woman, but he doesn't know that he's getting ready to happen on a situation that is going to tempt him. And had he not been wondering, had he not just kind of been naive. You know, there's a lot of, maybe if the person looking out the window had hollered at him.
Perhaps. Well, a great point also, a reminder for me, is how important it is for the people under our influence to have topics and discussions before you ever enter into or face those situations. Just like, you know, with my own children and now grandchildren, you know, to have conversations about immorality, you know, and scenarios. And, you know, if this presents itself, you know, you got to make decisions right here. You got to put your boundaries back here. You don't.
Yeah. You know, I heard somebody say when I was younger, when you're down a dirt road in the backseat of a car with a girl, that's not the time to decide you're going to live
exactly whether you're going to live
life.
Hold or not.
It's too late. You know, you've removed all of the barriers to that decision at that point. You needed to make that decision before you left. You know, before you turned down the road, before you got in the back seat. All of those things, all of those decisions are not. And you know, we've referenced Andy Stanley's book, The Best Question Ever. All of those decisions are not right or wrong decisions. It's not right or wrong to go on a date. It's not right or wrong to go down a dirt road. It's not right or wrong to get in the back seat of the car. But when you get there, it makes right or wrong a lot easier. It makes wrong a lot easier to choose.
Yeah. Is it wise? And it,
yeah. So how does temptation disguise danger?
makes it look really good and hides the fact that there are consequences. You're looking at what's in front of you. You're looking at the red juicy apple, not the consequences that you're going to pay for eating it.
I think of a context of like bait if you're going fishing. Yeah, what kind of bait you're going to use
with your gang pole? Yeah,
but like a mouse.
We had a big discussion about this today already.
I'll use a different scenario.
Thank you.
Like a mouse trap. The intent is to capture the mouse, and so you put bait out, and you use something that the mouse is attracted to. That the allurement becomes greater than the threat. Because you can't tell me even a mouse can't see this big device there and go, this wasn't here before, but every time cheese shows up, this thing is here. But the allurement becomes so much greater than the potential threat. And that's the way I see temptation. It disguises the danger or makes the allurement so great that you're willing to ignore it. And then it's too late.
Yeah, temptation almost becomes tunnel vision.
Yes.
To where all we can see. It's not that it's not there. If you backed far enough away, you could see the big trap. Yeah. You could see that clamp that was getting ready to cut your neck down. But your tunnel vision only lets you see the cheese. You talked about the apple. Whatever it is, that's all you can see in that moment.
And the closer you get to it, in that scenario, the senses kick in, where you not only see it, now you can smell it and you can imagine how good it is. And that's, to me, is how temptation plays itself out. The closer you get to it, the more your senses begin to tell you this is okay, or it's a good decision, or it's worth the risk. When the reality is, it's about to spring
even
on
simple things like, there's a lot of science. Don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry.
Yeah, that's just, it makes sense.
You'll buy everything.
Yes.
It's like, you just got to be careful, because when those things are driving the bus, you're going to be in trouble.
Yep.
So why is discernment such a critical piece of wisdom?
I think it's because if you can't discern right from wrong, good from bad, truth from a lie, it is impossible for you to make a wise decision. If you do not have the discernment to see those things, it doesn't matter how much wisdom you've been given, you can't use it.
Yeah, we talked about backing up, seeing the bigger picture, and discernment, I think, will help you take an intentional step or two back and let wisdom begin to play out, whether that's through prayer, whether that's through wise counsel, so that you can make some determinations. Discernment, I think, has a lot to do with what the motivation is behind an issue. It can be a golden opportunity that's coming my way. It could be an absolute straight up trap of the enemy. It could be a selfish desire. And wisdom will help us to determine what the motivation is, and discernment comes into play there to know whether this is an opportunity that I need to take advantage of, or whether this is something I need to run from and go in the opposite direction. Because initially, you don't always know which case it is. And so, discernment and wisdom go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think that concept of discernment helps determine direction, not just the decision. Because if you put yourself in the proximity of it, it's like if you can't afford a new car, don't go car shopping.
Why are you spending time on the lot?
Right, because you are going to eventually pull that trigger if you stay around it long enough. And discernment allows you to see things that aren't immediately evident.
That don't lie on the surface.
That's right. You may not know fully what they are. You may not even know why, but your discernment will say, I need to steer clear of this. So what steps help avoid destructive paths?
I pulled some things directly out of the scripture, out of this story, that I thought can certainly be applicable to us to avoid destructive paths at times. One being time. in the sense of when he went out, it said right at the end of day, right under as darkness began, there's a lot of things that take place in the dark that wouldn't necessarily take place in light, and there's a reason for that. And so the timeliness of things and opportunity can come into play, location or proximity to something. If he's not there at that time and place when she's there, then the temptation's not there. And so we have to be careful about that. Some of that we can do intentionally. Some of it we have to rely on discernment. I put in here conversation. The things we say and the conversations that take place amongst people, and as it relates to this issue of immorality, there's going to be some communication takes place before you ever cross another line physically. And so that's a step. I put in here his eyes, because Scripture said that she was seductively dressed. And even though he was naive, when the temptation presented itself, he was taken in by that. And just obviously didn't resist. And the list can go on and on and on. And I wrote wise counsel of others, again, because people often can see trouble spots for us before we ever see them.
I said recognizing situations and people for what they truly are, not what they look like. Being able to separate a problem or a person from your emotions and feelings about it, and understanding motives. I think that can keep us out of a lot of destructive things. If you understand your motive for doing something, or you can pretty clearly see what somebody else's motive for it is, you can pretty quickly decide, I need to turn around and walk the other way.
I think some of those things should be obvious, and we all know them. I think one of the greatest ways to defeat temptation is early obedience. The sooner you can do what you know to do is right, the easier it is to avoid temptation. You talk about how at dusk, like if he comes at a different time, she might not be there. And the craziest memory came to my mind, and it's hilarious. My dad, he'll even get a chuckle out of it, retelling it today. So we were living in Wake Forest. He was pastoring there, and the church was, it was the closest we ever lived to the church. When I say the parsonage was right next door to the church, there may have been 15 feet between the parsonage and the church. And so we'd leave, go straight home. It was in ninth grade.
Which took you 5 seconds. Which took you 5 seconds.
Yeah. Which was great at times, but there was, this is hard to explain in the days of streaming. My grandkids have no idea what cable TV is. Like, that's not even a relevant thing to them, to understand that. But this would have been early cable, or the first cable we ever had. We had a box, and cable TV might have been 13 channels. We were in Wilmington, and we moved there to Wake Forest. So I was in 8th and 9th grade. So it would have been 8th or 9th grade is where we were. And we had this big console TV, and we had cable TV. And, they would occasionally add some new channels. And when a channel first came on cable TV in a local system, as they tested it, it was not blocked, right? The pay gate or whatever wasn't there in the beginning.
So you had access.
That's right. You had access to everything. So anyway, before we went to church on a Sunday night, we had been flipping through, and there was a new channel, and it was some kind of gospel channel. Specifically, what was on was the Gospel Jubilee. Do you remember Gospel Jubilee?
Yeah.
So it was, quartets singing. And that particular day, it happened to be the Florida Boys. And even at a young age, I was fascinated by quartet music. And so, we watched it. When we went to church, we just turned the TV off. Well, me and my brother come home first. Mom and Dad are stuck at the church. We come on home, and I turned the TV on. Well, when I turned it on, it was the Playboy channel. No joke, like no lie.
Talk about baiting people.
And
Gospel Jubilee.
Right?
Jubilee.
Woohoo. And
Wow.
me and my brother, we were like,
Wow.
holy cow, you know? And so we're trying to figure out if we could stand there and watch it, how long we could watch it, when Mom and Dad were going to get home. Anyway.
We need to get our money together and send to these poor ladies who don't have enough clothes to wear.
Yeah. This is like an African mission here. Yeah. And so anyway, we heard Mom and Dad coming down the sidewalk, and you panic sets in, and the remote control was either
Wait. My question is, how long had y'all been watching
I don't
it at
remember
this
this.
point?
I really don't remember this. It couldn't have been a long time.
Time flew by.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
You could only flip up or down. You know, it was only up or down, and it was slow. We did have a remote, but it was slow. And so I'm trying to get the remote to change channels, and it wouldn't go down. So I'm pressing up, you know. Finally, it changed channels, and I powered it off and just headed down the hallway. And they were coming in the door. And, you know, they thought, well, that was strange. You know, you as a parent, you pick up on those things. But Daddy didn't think anything about it. Anyway, we go on to our rooms. We get ready. You know, the night goes on, we get ready for bed, and him and Mama sit down in the room, and he said he turned the TV on, and it was on a channel that nothing was on. And he was like, well, this is weird. So he started back down, and when he started back down, the first channel he came to was that. Yes. And he was like, oh, okay, I see what these boys were up to. So the next day he calls, you know, the cable company and has this conversation with them about what's going on. And they told him, they said, we got 2 new channels coming online. We were trying them. You know, we hadn't put the pay block on. We're so sorry. Please forgive us, you know, whatever. And it still took him a couple of days to put it back on, but he monitored our TV watching.
He said it didn't go off till Wednesday at 4:30.
Right.
But what it made me think of when you were saying that is it was harmless during the daytime. It was harmful when I came back at night. Same TV,
right?
Same channel. Right? It was just the timing of it. And temptation is often that way, that timing is everything. And if discernment helps you get the timing right so that you don't end up there at a time that is disastrous for you, and you have to be careful. So thank you for joining us again today on One Single Story. I just want to remind you that holiness is protected long before temptation appears if you use discernment. Hope you'll join us again on the next edition of One Single Story.